Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how are you doing?
Well, we get to talk a little bit about the Michigan game. We get to talk a little bit about the Big Ten championship game, and it seems like it should be a pretty interesting week.
It will be a pretty interesting week, but before we get into the Wisconsin game, the Big Ten championship game on Saturday, we should probably revisit the Michigan game a little bit. I hope people don't mind.
I have this sneaking suspicion that an audience made up largely of Ohio State fans will probably be okay with spending a little more time talking about a 29-point win over Michigan. But
Yes. So I got home from running some errands Monday, and I started to listen to some local Ann Arbor radio. I believe it was Ann Arbor. And they were not all that thrilled with the outcome. And there was a lot of wondering, like, is it even worth trying to compete with Ohio State? Because Tom, do you really want to support a bunch of cheaters who don't go to class, who have their priorities are all out of whack? And it's not worth selling your soul to compete against Ohio State in this, because they're Michigan. They do things the right way. Mm-hmm. And there's no reason to go off the rails and become something that you don't need to become, because you are Michigan and you will never be Ohio State, and you don't even want to be Ohio State.
I go back, 5-6 years into the past, distant, a time long ago, before the invention of the aeroplane or the wheel or fire, to a time when Michigan fans were deeply, deeply concerned about the moral and ethical implications of, say, running kids off in the middle of their careers, or dumping recruits real close to signing day. And curiously, some of those things have seemed to happen in Michigan recently, in recent years, under Jim Harbaugh. And that was okay, because that was the price of competing. But now Ohio State is offering online classes, which is a new thing that has only happened at literally every college and university in America, including the University of Michigan. And it is simply a bridge too far.
It's not fair. How do you even expect to compete against a program that utilizes online classes instead of sometimes physical classes for players? That's not that they're using that extra time for who knows what, but the fact that they don't have to step foot into class, that's not fair to Michigan, even though Michigan has online courses, as you said. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about, how do you compete against other schools that do this? You can't.
It's physically impossible. And yes, technically Michigan has the exact same thing that Ohio State has, but that's different because...
Right, exactly. You perfectly said it's different because, and that was the response from Michigan radio people, Michigan bloggers, and it's really, it's the Northwestern thing, where our academics, you beat us, but our academics are don't allow us to compete, but that's okay because we're better than this. And it's the cry of the loser of an athletic competition.
Yeah, it's a little bit of, I think, maybe some cognitive dissonance.
Oh, yeah.
Because there is a huge section of that fan base and that school in general that legitimately believes it is the greatest university in the world. They literally, during their pregame hype video narrated by James Earl Jones, he says the words, "This is the greatest university in the whole world," and it draws the loudest cheer of the entire video. So if they're the greatest, and it's a fact because James Earl Jones just said it, how could they possibly not be the greatest? The game must be rigged.
Yeah. If the James Earl Jones and World Report says it, then it must be so. And yet, if you're the greatest, wouldn't you be great in everything?
Or something. I mean...
Anything?
I'm not sure what area they are the greatest in. They're not number one in the U.S. News and World Report rankings of universities. They're not number one in football, which is what 100 and something thousand people are there to watch. They're not number one in basketball. They're not number one in hockey. Like
women's softball.
I mean, proximity to the State Theater in Ann Arbor, yes, number one. I mean, so yes, I guess. But yeah, it seems like 16 years of losing to Ohio State for a generation of people. It seems like there's a lot of the people who are just absolutely losing their minds over this are the people that grew up in the 90s, where the expectation was, well, yes, so Michigan beats Ohio State every year because Michigan is a superior institution with superior warrior poets who take the field, and simply the barbarians in Columbus simply cannot compete.
Those truck drivers.
And truck drivers and cooler poopers, and they simply cannot compete. And then as soon as things swung 180 degrees and it's now 15 out of 16 and 17 out of 19, they must be cheating, because now I am sure that at some point some rule has been transgressed in Columbus, and people from Michigan are more than happy to provide you a list.
You continue to lose the physical battle. You have to find other battles that, you believe you are better at. And it's kind of like, my dad's going to beat up your dad since you just beat me up. And you look for any way that you can find some superiority, even if it's just James Earl Jones telling you over the scoreboard that you're okay, son. That's my James Earl Jones.
Not great.
Not great, no.
Not great.
Baseball, Ray. Better? No?
Better.
But, yeah, the as you said, cognitive dissonance, the denial, you're seeing people being broken by this, and it's just every year. And the thing is, Tom, if online classes, and I wrote this in Michigan Monday this week, if online classes are such an advantage, why were people picking Michigan to win this game when they knew that some of Justin Fields' classes are online? That's a huge advantage, football-wise.
I mean, you would think that would have factored into the preseason projections, which had Michigan winning the Big Ten East, and many outlets having them making the playoffs. I mean, perhaps there was some uncertainty about the number of online classes programs,
right,
people in the program were taking. I don't know. I mean, that seems like, you put together your sort of computerized power rankings, and okay, you give them some certain extra bonus points for having a returning quarterback, or, a returning head coach, or a certain number of defensive starters back. Maybe the variable, the slider that calculates the number of online classes, maybe that needs to be tweaked a little bit to reflect its impact on the program and what it means for the college football season.
As long as there's federal privacy laws, I don't think they'll ever be able to do that.
We live in a fallen world.
Exactly. And the only thing you can do is just assume that it is bad, and that it has given your opponent an advantage, even though you also have this thing that you have deemed an advantage.
Yes, but that's different. Because
you mentioned that,
because,
yeah. Right,
yes.
Right. That's sorry to bring that back up again. But there's, what the advantage is, though, Tom? It's, as Ryan Day says, this is a lifestyle thing. Urban Meyer says it's 365 days. It's, as Justin Fields said, who has been here for 11 months. I've talked to their players. I know some of their players. We take it more seriously here. This is a guy who did not grow up with Ohio State, Michigan at all. He grew up with
Georgia Tech, Georgia, Florida.
Yeah, certainly not November gray skies playing in 36-degree weather. This wasn't something that was ingrained in him, but he sure seemed ingrained in that game, knowing as he was laying down on the field, injured knee, his only thought was, I've got to get back in the game. And, sure, everybody at Michigan wants to play and get back into the game and stuff, but there's the amount of attention, and that's another thing. The focus that Ohio State puts on this, Michigan people will also like to look down on it because they're I don't know if they're not doing it. There sure is a lot of Ohio State talk for Michigan fans and my timeline on Twitter, and also a lot of Michigan talk about how good Michigan is going to be. And yet, when you say Ohio State does this thing 365, and that's where their focus is, and then you have Michigan people like, oh, get a life.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite is when it's people who have chosen to make their entire livelihood out of covering collegiate sports, who then make a point to tell you the relative unimportance of collegiate sports in the grand scheme of the universe, which, that's kind of true, but your whole business model is based on people not realizing that. So I'm not sure you want to say the quiet part out loud.
But there is always basketball.
Well, and if there was a sport to follow in the current environment where you can truly be certain that a high-ranking team is pristine in all that it does, college basketball, men's college basketball, I think is certainly where you would want to you'd want to land.
But then the football thing, you can only stay away from it so long because now they've got to go get ready for a bowl game. Jacksonville is how many Michigan fans do you think have like timeshares in like Jacksonville or like Tampa, where it's like we're doing this crap again.
We're going out back to Tampa. Coconut shrimp for all.
And I guess it's unfortunate. They sure would like to go somewhere else. Actually, no, they wouldn't, because football's not that important to them, as they will tell you. That's true.
I think the last time I saw a projection, they were going to the Holiday Bowl in San Diego, which is lovely and good. And it's pretty far, so they won't have to worry about accidentally seeing the football while the football is being played, because it's pretty far it's about as far as you can get from Ann Arbor while still being in the continental United States.
Yeah, so that's their lot after the 56-27 loss to Ohio State. But I'm sure they're already over it because the academic demands. You've got to get back to getting that studying in class.
Plus you got to always figure out also the time that it takes to physically go to and from classes, because this is the right way to do it, because this is the way people did it 50 years ago.
Correct.
I hope that every single Michigan player is going down to the registrar's office and standing online and registering in person, because using computers, that's cheating.
And I imagine every dorm still has a phone book in it.
Mm.
And probably still gets milk delivered by the bottle.
Whole milk. Whole milk. If we know anything, whole milk.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
And so they're doing that and enjoying their poodle skirts and whatnot. So that's Michigan. Tom, on Tuesday, we talked to Ryan Day. We talked to Jeff Hafley. We talked to Justin Fields. We talked to Jeff Okuda. We talked to Devon Hamilton. Austin Mack. And they were pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was an entertaining afternoon.
I think maybe the most memorable part was when Austin Mack was asked about being undefeated, ending his career, being undefeated against Michigan, and he just started smiling, and he was standing at the podium, and he just starts moving around like his body was like didn't have control of his body anymore, and he's like smiling,
involuntary dancing.
That's exactly what it was. And he said, it's bragging rights. They can't ever take that away from me, and it's dope.
Mm-hmm. It does, from all indications, it does appear that things are pretty dope inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center this week.
Although, Tom, as we were leaving today, what music are they currently playing inside the walls of the Woody Hayes Athletic Center?
Yeah, last week we were expecting to hear "It's Time for War" by LL Cool J, which was the Urban Meyer tradition. Did not hear that. As we walked out, the strains of "Danger Zone" by Kenny Loggins blaring through the doors from the area where the coaching staff and the team meeting room is. So
we didn't stick around to see if Footloose would come up next, or if the theme to Caddyshack,
or if they were going to just simply repeat "Danger Zone" again and again and again. I mean, that's the real question: is this Danger Zone week for Ohio State?
This highway just keeps going on and on and on. So that's one thing to keep in mind. If things go south, blame it on Kenny Loggins.
Well, I mean, I know your initial concern when you hear that song is, will there be some sort of a cockpit issue exiting the cockpit, for example.
Too soon, Tom.
Good news is Ohio State is busing over. They are not flying over.
Yes.
So that should not be a concern.
That is true. A lot of talk about Justin Fields' knee brace today.
Lots.
A lot of talk. He practiced last week in the big brace on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then went to the smaller, more of a softer material brace, which is the kind of brace probably that I had in college when I sprained my lateral collateral ligament playing Frisbee. When I had stepped on the Frisbee on the blacktop and my leg kept going, don't worry about it. I'm fine now. But yes, it was harrowing.
Were you trying to catch the Frisbees in your mouth?
No, Tom.
No? Okay.
I was just trying to stop it with my foot. And I guess maybe the momentum of this Frisbee just kept going, and my foot was not enough to stop it. But anyway, just speaking from experience, one tremendous athlete about another. Justin Fields now, he got hurt, was down, went and put the bigger brace on. He said he's going to play with the bigger brace this week. It hinders his mobility and his speed, but does not affect him at all throwing the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, that seems like that will maybe change a little bit what Ohio State's doing on offense this weekend. I don't know that makes Ohio State any less effective than they would be otherwise. Ryan Day was asked, is there any chance, that you might consider sitting Justin Fields at the start of the game? You beat Wisconsin by 31 points earlier this year. Maybe you start Chugs and sort of see how it's going. And if you can get away with not playing him, you don't play him. And Ryan Day very quickly said, nope, he's playing. And Justin Fields said, yes, he is. 100% Justin Fields is playing.
I mean, it was 10-0 at the half last year. So it was 38-7 at the end of the game, but come on.
And it was 10-7 in the third quarter.
Exactly.
I mean, it was that ended up a blowout, and was not a blowout from the jump.
Another popular conversation was the weather and finally getting out of the rain and the wind, and they'll be able to play in some ideal conditions on a fast track in Indianapolis, which I'm sure nobody else is going to use when talking about the topic today.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody seems not Day didn't really talk too much about it, but Fields and Austin Mack seem to believe that things are going to go pretty well offensively for this team because they don't have to worry about the conditions or the wind or the rain. They can just do their job, and they'll be able to throw the ball more, which Austin Mack said he thinks it's hindered them in that, which, when you can throw it like Ohio State, or when you can run it like Ohio State, you can go ahead and lean on that. But I'm looking forward to it. Ideal situation, balanced offense, can do whatever it wants. It'll be Justin Fields has to back up what he said the last time they played Wisconsin, which is, it felt like they could have put 50 on him. Mm-hmm. And now he's going to have the opportunity, and there's no weather excuses, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as he said that after the Wisconsin game, I went, oh, that was a little spicy, especially considering you might have to play them again in a couple months, and lo and behold, they have to play them again in a couple months. I'm going to guess that quote is up somewhere in the Wisconsin football facility this week. That Justin Fields felt that it was a little disappointing to only beat Wisconsin by 31 points because they thought they could have scored more.
And he was asked about it, but he didn't really give any kind of answer. I asked Austin Mack about it, and he was like, "Yeah, we'll be fine. We'll be good. We can score." And but Fields, I don't even know what question he was answering. There certainly wasn't anything about scoring 50 or proving himself right, or maybe I shouldn't have said that. It sure seemed like, I don't really want to talk about that.
Yeah. And Austin Mack, the funniest thing I thought Austin Mack said today, other than the Michigan thing, was he was asked about playing inside this week, and he said he wasn't sure what he was more excited for, getting to go play for a ring this weekend, or the fact that they get to practice inside now. It's like, yeah, I mean, I can see that.
Yep. And talking with Ryan Day this week, just looking through some of the stuff he had to say, that somebody asked him, there's talk that Ohio State doesn't need to win this game to make the playoffs, and you would have thought this question was asked in Mandarin, and Ryan Day was like, the Big Ten, winning the Big Ten title is one of their goals. The first goal is beat Michigan. Second goal is win the Big Ten title. And from there, anything else can happen. Mm-hmm. And to, like last week, Ryan, they say you don't have to beat Michigan as long as you win the Big Ten championship and you can make the playoffs. And it's like, well, these scenarios that you're throwing out don't exist in these walls.
Yeah.
In this building.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist because this is what they do. This is why they're practicing and working out every day. It's for Michigan. It's for the Big Ten title. And to suggest that, these aren't that important, you're throwing a wrench into somewhere that it doesn't belong, basically.
Yeah, they are strongly incentivized to not just win this game on Saturday, but win this game with some style points. Because you want to stay number one. You want to face, Utah or Oklahoma or Georgia or LSU instead of Clemson in the first round. You don't want LSU jumping you if you're the Buckeyes. So you're incentivized to, hey, if they can go out and hang a 59-0 this week against Wisconsin, I would advise that they try and do that because if you can avoid Clemson until the final, go ahead and do that. But yeah, they are. That's one of those like academic versus real life things. Like, yes, from a purely academic perspective, yes, it does not matter if this team wins this game this week. They're going to be in the playoff either way unless they lose by 30.
Yeah. So
it doesn't matter from that perspective. But to the people in the Woody Hayes, like, oh yeah, this means a lot. They want to win their third straight outright Big Ten championship.
Yeah, and I'm with you on wanting to put a big score up because I'm starting to get this feeling like LSU's wins are going to kind of rise above Ohio State's wins. And I assume Cincinnati will drop out of the top 25 either this week or next week. So they're going to have the same number of top 25 wins. But then it comes down to Ohio State's overall domination in defense versus the fact that LSU beat Georgia, Alabama, Auburn, and Florida all like ranked in the top 12. Mm-hmm. So I would, as you said, advise OSU to put up the biggest number possible because you're going to need some more in your corner because those 4 wins are going to be tough. Now, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, I was of the opinion that as long as Ohio State continues to win out, they'll overtake LSU. But those SEC teams aren't dropping very far. And so I think at this point, I wouldn't be surprised or shocked if LSU overtakes OSU in the final rankings based on those 4 wins and nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably, if you're an Ohio State fan, hoping that LSU either wins very close or Georgia wins.
Yeah.
Because if Georgia wins, Georgia's probably number 3, LSU's number 4, and then Ohio State and Clemson are 1, 2, and then it almost, and then whatever. I mean, Georgia is, I'm sure Ohio State would prefer to play Georgia because Georgia has a good defense, but no offense, and Clemson has LSU has an extremely good offense, but a kind of middling defense. The fact that LSU limited Texas A&M to 7 points last week, that seemed like a little bit of a statement from them that, you want to use our defense to hold us out or keep us out from being number 1? Okay, we'll show you. And so 7 points to Texas A&M. Ohio State gave up 27 to Michigan, and then you're playing Georgia. Georgia's not going to hang 40 this weekend,
right?
So
that's going to help LSU's defense as well.
Yeah, I mean, LSU can kind of take that and go, well, look, our defense has played so much better. It's like, well, you played 2 crappy offenses, but that almost doesn't matter in the conversation. So yeah, I mean, if Ohio State can pull a shutout this weekend, even if it's 28-0, like that would be plenty, I think, to state their case that they should still be number 1.
Yep. Ryan Day was talking about the I'd say maybe not lack of respect, but maybe just his team was underrated. His players were underrated this year to start the season, and he feels like they still need more credit. They deserve more credit for what they've done. And it's not this thing of, we should be number 1 or whatever. He feels like he gets annoyed when when the analysts or the pundits just say, well, Ohio State they're a bunch of talent. It's a bunch of talent. He's like, no, these guys work hard. They listen. They're smart. They study. They learn. And it's not just talent. Yes, they have a lot of talent, but it's not just talent. And he thinks like the players aren't getting the credit they deserve. And that's why, all day it was him and Halfley talking about Jeff Okuda should win the Thorpe. Chase Young is great. J.K. Dobbins is great. Justin Fields should be a Heisman candidate. And they seemed like the whole tough love thing today felt more like the love portion of it. Mm-hmm. They were just really expressive of their players. And Halfley talking about Damon Arnett playing with one hand, saying Jeff Okuda is the best corner in the nation, one of the best he's ever been around. It felt like they had some emotion that they wanted to get off their chest about their players today.
Well, this is kind of another one of those kind of milestone points of the season. I mean, Ryan Day has talked about breaking up the regular season into 3 chunks based on the bye weeks. There's before the first bye week, the Northwestern and Wisconsin games between the 2 bye weeks, and then kind of that home stretch, those last 4 games. Now you're through that, so you kind of can stop, take a deep breath, and then on to the next one. But that is, Ryan Day has been very consistent about not wanting to be nostalgic or look at big picture stuff or whatever kind of throughout the season. And he still, again, didn't really want to get into that with himself personally on Tuesday. But that's a good time to kind of take a step back for a minute, kind of take stock of where you are this season. And, people were, trying to turn that into, this is, the coach playing the fake disrespect card like Dabo Swinney saying, everyone's just waiting to drop us to 20 if we don't beat South Carolina. It's like, no one is threatening to drop you to 20. This was not that. This was just, his point was basically, the people who picked Ohio State to finish 3rd in the division because they didn't have the talent, they had lost all this talent, and they just weren't as talented as they were last year, are now saying, well, of course they're doing what they're doing because they've got so much talent. And Dave's point is, you didn't think we had this talent 3 months ago. So what do you think has happened? There's been a lot of hard work and a lot of effort and a lot of discipline required to get from picked 3rd in the Big Ten to going on the road and hanging another 50 points on the preseason Big Ten East favorites.
Now that I think about it, I believe Ryan Day was campaigning for the Coach of the Year award. Pretty classless. That is certainly one way to read that. Jeff Halfley said he thought Ryan Day deserved it, and it's hard to argue with that really this year. And that if you are familiar with the history of that particular award, you know that logic has no bearing on that when it comes to Ohio State coaches, but this does seem like about as good a chance as you would have had to have a coach at Ohio State win that since Tressel in 2002 or Meyer in 2012. I mean, I don't know what else Ryan Day possibly could have done. And, it's easy to say, he's doing it with Urban Meyer's players, but he's doing something with Urban Meyer's players that Urban Meyer never did. Yeah. So the award will be announced before I get this podcast posted. So, Tom, do you think he's going to win it?
I think that he is going to win it based solely on the fact that there isn't a super obvious, strong other candidate. And Tom Allen will get some votes from Indiana. P.J. Fleck will get some votes. But, if Tom Allen had beaten Penn State or beaten Michigan, he probably wins. If P.J. Fleck beats Wisconsin or beats Iowa, he probably wins. But neither of them did it, so I think, this is like taking picking Chase Young's number of sacks to a whole nother level. The whole award ceremony may fall into a giant sinkhole once I say this, but I think this might be the year the Ohio State head coach wins the Big Ten Coach of the Year award for the first time since 1979.
I will say also Ryan Day will have 3 sacks against Wisconsin.
Big if true.
I agree. I think if PJ Fleck, if Minnesota had won and had beaten Wisconsin, then it's PJ Fleck. Because they didn't, I'm going with Ryan Day on this one. I thought Urban Meyer probably should have won it at least twice.
Certainly in his first
Jerry
year.
Jerry Kill win it one year over...
Probably.
But, I mean, the list of names, if you ever go and Google Big Ten football coach of the year, it's not a great list of names. And it's because of the way they do the way they award it. And it's doing the most with the least. But since Ohio State people who vote on this stuff didn't think Ohio State had the most. So Ryan Day has done the most, not with the least, but with the less most.
I'm right now loading furiously to see if I can get the post list. I believe John L. Smith won the award one year. I believe, who was the Illinois coach in 1999?
Well, didn't Ron Zook win it one year?
Ron Zook might have won it 1 year.
Or was that quarterback?
Paul Christ has won it twice, which tells you all about the charisma necessary to win it.
Yeah.
Pat Fitzgerald, Big Ten Coach of the Year last year. How did that work out this year? Yeah. Not great, Bob. There's just... Yeah, Jerry Kill won it in 2014.
Yeah, that was the year that Ohio State won a national title.
Yes.
Who won in 2012 when Urban should have?
Not my internet speed, that's for sure. I mean, Kirk
Ferentz.
Yeah, Kirk Ferentz won in 2002 when Ohio State went
undefeated. They didn't even win their state title that year. Iowa State beat them.
They did not, yes. So 2012 was Bill O'Brien from Penn State. I mean, look, anytime you can go 8-4, you got to remember he took over a program that had a bad season the year before. Yep. And so therefore going 8-4.
That did not apply to Urban Meyer in 2012. Oh, okay.
That's not. Well, there were NCAA issues. That's the difference.
Okay.
Yes.
But there weren't at Penn State?
No.
Okay.
No. I was saying there were NCAA issues at Penn State. That was the difference.
But it wasn't because... all right.
Ron Zook, 2007. Yes. Joe Paterno, 2008. Do you want to talk about the amount of coaching Joe Paterno was actually doing in 2008?
Give Tom Bradley that award.
It was not substantial. John L. Smith. Well, anytime you go 8-5 at Michigan State in 2003.
It's so ridiculous.
Ron Turner was the name I was struggling to come up with.
There you go.
2001, Illinois. Ron Turner. Glenn Mason, 8-4 in 1999.
What a litany of names. How many Hall of Famers in that list?
Let's see.
3?
Are we counting Kirk Ferentz as a Hall of Famer?
Yes.
Is there a Hall of Fame for bad contracts? No. Let's see. Including Brady Hoke.
Did he win it?
He did in 2011. 2011, the year that Brady Hoke just coached a team to recover every single fumble that happened all season long and also have... the two other major conference powers both have NCAA-related explosions in that year.
Perfect timing.
That was a great coaching job by Brady Hoke.
The perfect storm.
Yep. Brett Bielema, Hall of Famer. John L. Smith, Hall of Famer.
both former Arkansas coaches.
Yes. My favorite, scrolling back through, I think my favorite is either John Makovic winning it for going 6-5-1 at Illinois in 1988.
It's Northwestern.
Or... Dennis Green winning it for going 3-8 in 1982. Mike White won it at 1983 for Illinois. There's no record listed here, which means that season probably got vacated. Whoops-a-daisers.
Coach of the year.
Yes.
For cheating.
But the best. We'll wrap up with this one. Gary Moeller, 1992. 9 wins, no losses.
3 ties.
3 ties. Yes. But he won the Coach of the Year award outright. Ironic.
That's true. Especially for a program known for sharing major awards. One. A long time ago.
22 years ago, give or take. Yes.
Give or take. We should start wrapping up. One other thing that Ryan Day said that I liked was you said he doesn't like to look back and he doesn't like to reflect. He was asked what it's like when he sees his players having success against Michigan and playing well in big games. And he said it's as good a feeling as you can possibly have, and it's very humbling. And that should tell you a lot about the rivalry again. And imagine Jim Harbaugh being asked that question if Michigan wins it. And you're like, what's it like seeing your players out there finally having success? And he'd probably be like, yeah, it's great. And then look for the next question.
Seems good. I don't know.
And then you wonder why, like, Austin Mack's talking about how I love playing for this guy. I love playing for this dude. I love playing for Ryan Day.
Jeff Hafley said the same thing.
What do you think the love factor is from these players playing for Jim Harbaugh right now?
We said that 2 years ago watching that Amazon Prime show. It just, nothing about that looks fun.
Nope.
And nothing about Saturday looked fun. And his post-game press conference didn't look fun. And I can't imagine playing in your home stadium and looking around that stadium and seeing 20,000 Ohio State fans and about 5,000 Michigan fans at the end of the game. Can't imagine that was a whole lot of fun. No. Ryan Day has, I think, done a very good job of establishing a kind of happy, family-friendly culture inside the WAC, where it seems like the coaching staff has maybe it might be just kind of a little bit less of a meat grinder in there this year. Yep. And you're seeing that, I mean, he is very clearly a beloved figure in that building, and you can do that. You can be friendly. You can not be football robot coach and still win games.
You sure can. As you look at the difference between Urban Meyer and Ryan Day, there is, Tom, more than one way to skin a Wolverine.
But, I mean, the difference there, I think, is Urban Meyer got over 60 points. Ryan Day?
Only 56.
Something to aim for next year, I guess.
That's true. I should have asked him that today. All right. Tom, that'll have to wrap it up. Anything else before we go?
I think that should cover it for today. We will have a Patreon-only show, Patreon bonus show on Wednesday evening, probably this week.
Yeah, we'll record it Wednesday evening.
And then we will also have our regular late week regular episode will also probably go up a day early because we do not have a Thursday Ryan Day press conference, so we will do it after player interviews on Wednesday evening.
Yep, and then we'll have an instant reaction from the Big Ten championship game. Should we do something Sunday then? Once we find out, probably, right?
I would guess there will be some interest in.
Do you guys like how we discussed the schedule on the show?
I would guess there will be some interest in the college football playoff seedings and results.
I don't try to predict what the people want.
That seems like that might be of some relevance to some people here in Columbus.
Well, we'll do something then if you guys are desperate for that. But all right, we'll talk to you guys then.